Hello! It's been a hot minute since I've done a Tea Time Tuesday, but that's what I have for you today. A 5-minute Q&A session, or where you ask me a question and I aim to answer that question in 5 minutes or less. So let's get stuck into it. Today's question is one around planning for the year ahead, and it basically says, how do I start to look for resources when I do each year's planning for each child and their different abilities and learning styles and those sorts of things? Do I start with reviews? Do I pull from my own library here? What do I do each year when we're looking to start afresh? So I just want you to keep in mind that we are nearly close to entering our 17th year of homeschooling. So this is just second nature to me. It's really not something that I think too much about anymore. It just becomes what we do. And in all honesty, I am always looking forward to the year ahead. I'm always looking at what we're doing here and now, and then as we're working through things will pop up and I go, oh, we haven't touched on that in a while, or we didn't do, that particular, it's like I knew for 18 months that I wanted us to do a forensic science unit before we actually got around to doing that. But I just had it on my list and I kept it on my list because I knew it was something that I wanted to do. So I am always forward planning, not constantly focusing on it, but it is always there in the back of my mind. And then when I'm on forums and chat groups and things like that, and someone mentions a program that sounds great, I will bookmark it so that I can come back and look at it at a later date. So that is probably the first thing I do, that I am always looking ahead and I'm always thinking about next year. In terms of how I tackle things with varying ages and abilities and grade levels and interests and all those sort of things, wherever possible, we do group learning units. I found when my kids were younger and trying to do everyone doing different subjects at different levels at different times, it's chaos. So wherever possible, we are learning together. Obviously mathematics is the one that needs to be separated out and needs to be ability appropriate. And then again, of course, what their output is for language arts. But everything else, we do together. That's the biggest sanity saving tip I could probably give, is do as much as you can as a group. So from there, when I am actually sitting down to truly plan out the year, yes, the first thing I do is go to my bookshelves. Again, when you've been homeschooling for as long as I have, you build up an abundance of resources. And so most of the time I do pull from what I have here. Granted, all three of my children are different learners, so things that I've used with my eldest child haven't necessarily worked very well with my other two children. But that's okay. I do keep them on the shelf until I know for sure that this is no longer serving us, and that's then when I choose to move it on. So once I've exhausted what's on my shelf, I do then sit down and look at each individual child. What do they need this year? What did we not do so much of last year? What did I notice was possibly lacking, or that they need to hone in on and focus in on a little bit more? So for example, we have spent, an entire year just honing in on research report writing skills, and our whole year was really focused in on that. So it is looking at each individual child and assessing what do they really need. This is where I forget about Australian curriculum or our state-based curriculum programs. I completely ignore those and just look at my child. What does my child need for the year ahead? So that is something that I do take into a big consideration as well when I'm choosing programs. From there, I'm normally at the stage now where I just kind of know what we're doing or where we're headed and roughly what we're going to be covering for the year. This is where I will jump on and look for product reviews. This is when I go back to my bookmarks, because 9 times out of 10, I've already bookmarked what I'm going to use. So I just want to spend some time, especially if I'm investing a considerable amount of dollars and having it shipped to me from the US, because if you're here in Australia, then you know that shipping costs are absolutely ridiculous right now. So I do spend as much time as I can, generally on video reviews such as these that you'll find on YouTube. I find them invaluable. Always remembering that what doesn't or does work for one family doesn't necessarily mean that it will or won't work for us. And when you're new to homeschooling, that is probably the trickiest part of choosing curriculum, because you quite often don't know what's going to work, and there really is just a lot of trial and error, and there will be times that you'll buy something thinking that it's going to be this amazing program for you all, and it's one big flop. That's not a failure on your part, it's not a failure on your children's part, and in most cases it's not a failure of the program either. It's just that it's not the right fit for your dynamics. The more that you do this and the longer you stay at it, the better you will get at choosing what will and won't work for your family. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do in those early years apart from try it out. And so when I'm tackling 5, 6, 7 subjects that I need to find programs for, it's really very overwhelming. And something that I did in my early years, and something that I still recommend to other new homeschoolers, is to tackle things subject by subject. So I would always look at what I see as the most important ones first. That would be mathematics and mostly all of the language arts components. So even if we spent 3 to 6 months not really worrying about science and history and geography and technology and all those other superfluous subjects, and I just honed in and focused on getting our mathematics right and our language arts right once, I spent some time doing that, and I knew that we had at least what we were going to stick with for the next 12, 18, 24 months before I moved on to other subject areas. Because trying, again, like I said in the beginning, to pick curriculum or choose programs for all subjects for all your children is a massively overwhelming task in the beginning. My advice is to just focus in the beginning on what's really important. Get your mathematics right, get your language arts programs right, or as close to right as you can. There's no such thing as a perfect program. We always need to remember that. But get those where you're feeling comfortable. And when you're feeling comfortable, then you can look at, okay, what's our next most important topic or subject that we want to be looking at, and then move on to that, rather than trying to tackle in 1 month 7 to 8 different subjects. So I hope that has helped. That's what has worked for me over all these years, and it is something that I continue to do to this day. I really can't see any of that changing for me. I'm that far into it now. But once again, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.